who can. Okay, any of you guys can answer that.
Did you say how to prepare for interviews, or how to prepare for like applying to get job interviews?
Yeah, I can just ask clarify. Like, how did you prepare for a job interview while juggling that with your classes? Like in your senior year, while you're still taking classes, how did you handle the job interview in as well on top of taking classes?
Gotcha. I think for me, just having a good schedule between classes, just setting aside a couple of hours per day, like having that goal each week of how many hours I want to spend towards lead coding, how many hours I want to spend towards applying, how many jobs I want to apply to. So just breaking that down into very specific goals is what really helped me juggle between like classes, exams, homework, and also interviewing on the side.
Yeah, I agree with her. I think having a schedule is really important. And as for me, I prepared my resume and got my like a base format of a cover letter ready. So I did all of that logistic part, I guess, and got it out of the way. And I had a set of like templates ready to go. And then so like every time I find a posting that I like, I can just tweak it to match the company and the specific role, and then that becomes a lot easier instead of having to like sit down and make a new like cover letter from scratch for it then and there.
Yeah, for me, I guess I just like really shotgun applied to places. So that's a lot less effort, I feel like. Just mass applied and then would field interviews as they came in.
So thank you. I think a more GDC oriented question and more importance to GDC is, how did GDC affect your job prospects? Yeah, being a GDC officer and attendee, how did that affect your job prospects?
I can go first. A lot of people were actually, when I was interviewing, a lot of them were actually pretty interested in what GDC does, especially because being part of the team, not just an officer, but being part of the club, it really builds upon not just your technical knowledge, but also your interpersonal skills and soft skills. And that's what companies really look for, not just someone who's technically advanced, technically strong, but also someone who's well-rounded, is good with soft skills and things like that. So I think GDSC definitely helped with that, and also helped with learning about different topics that you don't usually learn in college classes, right? Throughout these workshops. And a lot of those are skills that you utilize in your job, or if you want to do personal projects. So I think that's the impact that it had for me, at least.
Yeah, for me, it was definitely with the soft skills part of the interview. And also when they ask you about like your, because companies are interested in more than just the academics part. So when they ask about like your other campus involvement and stuff, there's always a really good talking point. And also holding an officer position also, helps with team building abilities and organizational skills. So all of that's like stuff that you can really highlight when interviewing.
Yeah, I'd agree with both what Teresa and Neha said. I guess also the other thing that's a plus side is a lot of things are automated now. So like your resume gets ran through something, and having Google on there probably helps. So
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'll also add one more comment to it. I asked Charlie, who was also another director of Solution Challenge, to if he could attend, but he was unable to attend. But he answered these questions ahead of time. So he said that joining GDSE was the best thing he did in school to help him prepare for his career. It gave him a valuable experience to talk about in this interview. Taught him how to work in his team, how to organize meetings efficiently, and how to be accountable to others. He didn't realize at the time, but this put him very far ahead in the job search and gave him skills that a lot of fresh grads don't have. Also, for some context, Charlie is not a software engineer per se. He's a technical salesperson. So a different opinion, a different perspective on that. I think with that, another question from the audience is that, what is something you wish you knew before working at your said company?
For me, it's not really a technical thing, but just I think the biggest thing for me was it's okay to ask for help. When I first joined, it was really difficult for me to ask for help, especially because in college we're taught and like expected to do everything on our own, all our class assignments. It's not really a very collaborative environment. So you like basically go through all years of like your education thinking that you have to tackle everything on your own. But when you start working, it's like pretty much the exact opposite of that. People want you to like interact with your team, brainstorm, come up with solutions, and like just immediately ask for help if you feel like you've been stuck on something for too long. Because the longer you're stuck and you try figuring it out on your own, instead of just asking help, it like it affects everyone. It blocks everyone and like slows down the whole process. And like everyone's like, usually really friendly and people want to help you learn. So it's not like you're just directly asking for the answer. You're sort of asking them to help guide you along, maybe point you to the right resources or give you a few pointers. So I think asking for help is the most important thing.
Yeah, I guess also building off that is it's okay to like ask the dumb questions is in meetings, especially in the beginning, I was like more afraid to talk or speak up. But even just asking clarification questions and like starting to talk in meetings will then prep you to like add better insight later on. Um,
Yeah, I want to echo what both Connor and Teresa said. It's okay to not know things. When you start working, it's actually kind of assumed that you don't know a lot of things, right? Especially about the team or whatever, how things work. So everyone in your team is there to help you. They will guide you through things, and it's expected that you're gonna, there's gonna be a ramp up time. They'll give you time to learn everything. And like Connor said, just ask the dumb questions. It's likely that if you are confused about something and unsure of something, someone else on the team is also could be confused or would need a refresher. So just, first couple months, just be a sponge. That's what everyone says. Absorb as much information as you can, ask questions, and
Awesome. Another question from the audience is what are the pieces of advice you would give to CS students in securing jobs at these companies? But I think the highlight of this question is what are some misconceptions towards this process of applying for jobs? How do you build a compelling resume and how do you prepare for interviews? Also, if you don't have an answer for some of these questions, if other people have answered, then no worries. I don't expect everyone to answer. But yeah.
Yeah, I could go first. I think the biggest tip that I kind of learned throughout the recruiting process is apply early and try to apply with a referral. If you don't know anyone that works at that company, you can always go on LinkedIn, look for alumni who went to UCSC. That's usually a great way to connect with people, try to get referrals from people who work at the company that you want to apply to. But it's really important to apply early. So set those job alerts or whatever you can, maybe continue to look on particular websites to see when jobs are being posted. And if you apply early enough, it's, the your resume is kind of at the top of the stack, right? The recruiter, there's a higher chance of the recruiter looking at your resume if you apply early rather than later. So that's one tip that I'd give when for applying. When building your resume, I think it's important to tailor your resume towards different job roles, especially because, as Connor said, there's a system that kind of just scans everything. It's called the ATS. So if you can put in keywords from the job posting into your resume, there's a higher chance that it'll pass through the system and your resume will get flagged for, interviews. And what was the last question, Matthew?
How do you prepare for interviews? Yeah.
Prepare for interviews. Yeah, I think for me, I'd say have a really good foundation of data structures and algorithms. So there's some really great resources out there like Cracking the Coding Interview or Interview Cake. So really like get those fundamentals down. And then also use websites like LeetCode and things like that to, practice questions because oftentimes these big companies, they ask questions directly off of LeetCode. So on LeetCode, there's some, you can go through by company tagged questions. And those are questions that were frequently asked in interviews over the past couple of months. So these are all great resources to study.
Right. Anything else? That's it. So the question that we have is from the officer team is there anything about your experience in college that you would do differently?
I think I would have definitely made it a point to take Harrison's elective, the one where he goes over the whole React, basically web development. I'd wanted to take it, but somehow because of schedule conflicts, I missed out on taking it. And when I started working, pretty much everything I was doing was web development. So I really regretted not taking it. But oh well, you learn on the fly.
I guess just maybe network more. I don't think I really network that much. I don't know if it matters that much though, because now that like I started a job and live in Seattle, everyone works in tech, so kind of instantly get a big network. But
Yeah, no, getting a network to initially get your job prospects will be solid. But I think after, I think naturally you can get a network once you get enter a job. But that's also something to be proactive about for sure. You can't just expect it to come naturally. Um, Another question that we had from the officer team is, what are the best classes at UCC that prepared you for your job? Any particular classes? Maybe you can say the title because maybe the numbers has changed, but yeah.
yeah, I think there was probably only one class that was remotely similar to my job, which was like I think it's operating systems. Used to be 130, I want to say, where they gave you a huge like a 1986 operating system or something, and Harrison would have you kind of like fill in the blanks of what was missing. I think that's more similar than anything else because entering into like this job, right? I now have like 5 services that I work on, each with just like a huge code base. And figuring out what the code base does and then adding on to it is way more similar than anything else. So yeah.
I'd say for me, I agree. 130 operating systems with Harrison was really helpful. Like Connor said, it was the only class really that gave me the experience of working with a larger code base and navigating through that, which is what you're going to be doing on a daily basis when you start working, right? You're not necessarily always writing new code from scratch. You're oftentimes adding code, bettering code. There's that class, and then I also really enjoyed and learned from distributed systems. I forget what the number was when I took it, but
138, I think it is.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's been really helpful in terms of like when you have to design a new service or you know things like that. So just knowing the different components of the service was very helpful. That class was good.
For me also, I like wholeheartedly agree with Connor. It was just 130.
Yeah, I think OS I think somehow changed to 134. But yeah, I'm taking 134 and I will also co-sign on that. It is a very you're given a existing OS and even just for the first assignment that I'm doing that is due tomorrow, it is a lot of time invested in understanding just what a simple function does and how to wiggle your implementation into the existing framework. So yeah, I recommend. A question that Charlie, the technical salesperson, that he answered this question. He was saying no classes, but he recommends doing clubs. Clubs was for him doing clubs was the best thing to do at UCC rather than any class he's taken. So yeah. I think another question from the audience is, what was your capstone course? But I'll also add like how if your capstone course has impacted your technical experience.
Yeah, so I actually did 2 caps too. So I was a computer engineer. So I did both the 115 series, which was the 3/4, which is the software, and I also did the hardware slash software one. So for 115, I don't even remember if I like fully remember. I know part of it we did like a social network thing for working out that tracked how long you worked out. Oh, and then I forgot that was like the first part. And then I worked for Databricks, and we built like a whole security system for them to scan GitLab files. And then on the hardware side, I did a device that would track when you were close to other devices by like how far away you were, like in footage, using low Bluetooth and Buzzbee, which was very interesting. In both aspects, I think the Databricks one, I used a lot of specialized tools, and ended up using like a lot of things that I use now, like Lambda, like AWS tools. So that was really good. And then in the hardware one, I don't use any of the tools that I learned from that because I don't work in hardware.
Oh yeah, go ahead. No, please go ahead.
Oh, when you say capstone courses, like upper day courses?
You can, I mean, you can definitely expand to that. I think capstone was particularly like 115, like the 115 course. There was some like technical writing course, and I think a couple others. But if there's any capstone course that or any upper div course aside from like the 134 or 130 that you mentioned that you would recommend, and if you took anything from that, yeah, more than
Yeah, I'd say the web applications course was actually good because you work, I don't remember what number it was, but you work in a team of like 2 to 4 people throughout the entire quarter, and you like build a web application. And so that was really helpful in terms of like learning how to collaborate with people and about like version control with code, collaborating with people on that, because that's what you're going to be doing at work, right? You're contributing to the same code base, making changes. So I think in that regard, that was a good course.
but that's seriously 183, I believe.
That does sound
186 is full stack. Is
I just wanted to hop back in. I forgot. So in the 115 series, that was actually awesome because I worked with a company, Databricks, and then that gave us like a lot of skill sets, like talking to like a client, which would be the customer we worked with, working with a group. Like everything was very professional, and it definitely felt more like an internship than a class.
Okay. With that, I think question from the officer team is, what experiences or opportunities outside of the university help you get your first job, if you have any to mention?
I think I tried to I tried to take part in a lot of extra stuff. So apart from the clubs on campus during the pandemic, I did sort of an unpaid internship with a small like startup just to like get a around web dev. That's where I first started with web development. Besides that, I also worked with like I did a small volunteer thing, which I guess like companies also care about what you do outside of academics. So I think that's also, and especially if it's something like if it's for a cause that you're particularly like passionate about, then like I think it's a good thing.
Right. And Charlie also mentioned that his time in clubs as a member and leadership and his work experience from summer and during school was really useful for getting his first job. The next one, well, what organizations at UCSC do you recommend joining? You can include GDC in it, but anything else you'd recommend?
good, Connor. It's okay.
Yeah, sure. I'd say GDSC was good. I think also I just recommend joining like a fun club. Like I know Charlie was in mountain biking, so I'm sure he answered that. But like just something like that you're interested in or would like to try, especially something probably relate or like I would suggest something related to Santa Cruz, like surfing or mountain biking or hiking or something. All right, Neha, go for it.
Yeah, I definitely say GDSC. I think that was the most helpful club that I was part of on campus. Just utilize all the resources that they have to provide for you. And then I was also part of 180 DC Consulting. That was pretty good. I think that really helped with just like public speaking skills, developing some soft skills and interpersonal skills. And then, like Connor said, join a fun club as well and things that you're interested in. I was part of ISA, which was fun attending the events.
Yeah, definitely GDSC. But apart from that, I was also part of WISE, which is Women in Science and Engineering, for a short time. I thought they had some really cool activities too. They sometimes set up these like coffee hours, and someone comes and like talks about so there they sometimes talk about, you know, like how to prepare for an interview, or like um how to network efficiently. So like a lot of useful talks, and you also get to meet a lot of people, especially graduate students. So yeah, I think that's a good one too.
So, I think Connor, well, I don't know the exact word for it, but preface that what Charlie said was cycling, DSC, going on rec trips, the UCC rec, and bike co-op. So he's a very big cycling guy. So those are his fun clubs, and then DSC was his academic specific club he'd recommend. And then I think a question from the audience is, how many internships did you do, and how did you get them?
I just interned at Walmart, and then I got a full-time offer, so that's how I converted. And as for how I got it, I applied, I think spring semester of my second year. I was just I actually heard about this network, career fair that Walmart was holding, online, of course, because the pandemic was happening. But yeah, so I just dropped in, and they had recruiters in different like breakout rooms. So prior to joining the fair, I'd applied online, and then I joined the fair, and I spoke to a recruiter, and I told her that, okay, this is the role I'm looking at. Already submitted an application. And then she took down my email and said she'll be in touch. And then, yeah.
I did an internship at a startup company in India for my sophomore year. That was pretty much it. Yeah, when I applied for full-time roles.
Yeah, I also only had one internship. I interned at Bank of the West, which I guess for my internship, I just asked my like parents, friends, and anyone like I knew that worked anyone for referrals, and then tried to go off of that. Also, yeah, like smaller companies like banks are probably easier.
Solid. Another question from the audience. What are some tips on passing a behavioral interview? If you guys have any.
Yeah, I would say definitely there's a list of like commonly asked behavioral questions. You can find those online. I'd say most questions will be variations of a couple of of those questions. So what really helped me was putting those list of questions in a Google Doc and answering them, writing down my answers for them. And also utilize the STAR method when you're answering these questions, which is situation, task, action, and result. You split your answers into those 4 different sections. So writing the answers to that beforehand really helped because I kind of knew what I wanted to say. And again, usually behavioral questions will be variations of a couple of questions. So you can use one answer and kind of modify it on the spot to answer another question.
Just to add off of that, I'd also say do a little bit of research about the company. And so each company would have their own set of like values and core beliefs that they uphold. So like read through those a bit, try and and then try and incorporate those into your answers.
Awesome. I think that will go back to another question from the officers. What are some ideas you learned from your job that you did not learn at your time at UCSC?
I can go first. I think one part of my job is succeeding, at least at my job, requires a lot of ownership. So really pushing for yourself and your own changes. Um, if you're like writing code and it's like due, or like you have a project due date in like a week, you really like have to make sure you're like pushing for your stuff to go. Because like things will always come up. And so that needs to one be factored into the timeline you set, but also like you need to make sure that your stuff takes priority. Um,
I think for me, something that I learned on the job is dealing with ambiguity with classes and assignments. It's all very like structured. Everything's kind of explained properly for you in most classes, at least. But a lot of the times when you're working, you're kind of given these project requirements, and no one's there to really tell you these are the steps that you need to follow to finish your project, right? So a lot of that you have to determine on your own. You have to utilize your resources, your peers, your colleagues, do some research and formulate a plan to move forward. So
I think one thing for me would be no one else knows exactly what you're capable of doing better than you yourself. So if there's a new feature, like some initiative that you think you'd be able to do, then it's totally okay for you to bring that up with your manager and express interest in wanting to pick up that initiative instead of waiting for it to be assigned to you.
Solid. And what Charlie mentioned was your time is the most valuable thing you have. When you get out of school, it becomes difficult to fit everything in. So if you have any opportunities in front of you and time to do them while in school, make the most out of it and have fun. And then a question from the audience. Another good question is, what software engineering related specialization certifications would you recommend to help your resume stand out for internship applications? Or moreover, do you think certifications make an impact when applying for jobs?
no, you got it.
okay. I think for me, since I work in Azure, some cloud certifications really helped. But it really is role specific, I think. So yeah, I would say cloud certifications for myself. Which actually DSC, there was a workshop that we, sorry, Connor, that we hosted where you were able to get a cloud certification, put it on your LinkedIn. So again, DSC is a great resource.
Yeah, I was just gonna pretty much say what Neha said. I know back when I was in school, like AWS certificates were looked on favorably. I know certificates definitely take kind of a background role below like real work experience, but I think they are still helpful.
Okay, solid. Another question, I think it's two-parter, but how is your work-life balance while you're working? But also, if you had a school life balance versus like when you're in school, how'd you handle social time and academics versus we're now in working, where how do you handle work and then social time as well?
I can go first. I definitely miss the long breaks we used to get in school because like summer break was 3 months and the spring break. So that I really miss. But in terms of like a balance, I think I have a better balance now than in school, because school there was always like, this assignment, that assignment, like so many things to keep up with. Here, like sure, I mean everything has we decide on a deadline, but after that it's up to you to plan how how much you want to do when, as long as you finish it by that date. And most of the time, others are also respectful of the whole like 9 to 5 or trying not to disturb you on the weekends. But yes, sometimes like depending on if there's like a critical production issue, yes, you would have to work on the weekend. But again, people are really respectful about it. So if you do end up working on the weekends, at least for me, they always recommend or like ask us to take a day off during the week to make up for it.
I can go. So I think right now my work-life balance is pretty good compared to a lot of other tech companies or a lot of other teams at Amazon. It does come and go though based on deadlines and projects. Also, we had a Sev 1 a couple weeks back, and I happened to be on call, so I ended up working like till 3 in the morning on Saturday, and then went to sleep, and then woke up, and then worked all day on Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, full days, like 12, 13-hour days. But that's just like, I don't know, that's part of being on call. And it almost never happens. Uh, second part of this, I think I'm pretty bad to ask this question for because I did not do as much work in college as I think Teresa or Neha did. So I had a ton of free time and kind of just like messed around. So I definitely have a lot less time now, even though I would say my overall work-life balance is still pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say that my work-life balance after you're starting to work is a lot better than in college. I feel like in college you have classes and then the evening sometimes you're always doing assignments or going to club meetings. So it's like there's no real structure of when you work on college stuff and when you have like free time, right? It's kind of all muddled together. But yeah, as Teresa said, people really respect the 9 to 5 concept. And so people don't really bother you. You're not expected to respond or work after hours, unless again, you have something, there's a deadline approaching, you want to work a little bit more, or if you're on call and you get pinged or paged for some kind of production issue.
Solid. And Charlie, at least he was able to answer the question of how did you find the social life while doing CS? And he mentioned join clubs, don't rush to graduate if you can afford to, and study with people in your classes. Yeah. Last couple of questions. Are there any types of projects that you would recommend working on that you would generally help in getting internships? And a second part of the question is, in case someone was not able to get an internship during college, would that affect their chances of finding a job after graduating?
I'd say try to do like work on projects that utilize like a full stack project that has back end components, front end components, you're tying different things together that really gives you a good experience of different forms of technology and kind of utilizing them together. And for the second part of that question, it's totally okay if you don't have internships. I actually was supposed to do an internship after my junior year, and I couldn't do it because I didn't get my work authorization in time. So it was a big bummer back then because I thought I was missing out and I didn't get work experience during that summer. But that's totally fine. You can add things to your resume like side projects or, becoming an officer of a club or just being more involved in a club. You can also, work with a nonprofit or do an unpaid internship. There's lots of options and it's not going to hinder your chances of getting a full-time job. Just do things on the side to kind of compensate for it.
All right, yeah. I think I don't know much about not getting the internships, how much it would impact, because again, like resume scanners. I feel like something that is helpful though to like get you ready would be to work on an open source project if you could find one. Because that's gonna have more impact. It's gonna be more like you're actually working on a team, and you're gonna be working in like an already established code base. Instead of like following those like silly YouTube tutorials that teach you stuff, you should like go and work on open source stuff, I think.
Um, second to last question. What is the first thing you recommend? What do you first recommend doing when it comes to finding an internship, specifically an internship that's more oriented towards AWS, Terraform, etc.? Or I think just like the main question is, how do you find internships or jobs too?
So at least the year I graduated, there is both a GitHub list for internships and a GitHub list for full-time jobs. I don't know if it still exists, but I looked up software engineer like 2022, like full-time positions, and there's like a list of maybe like 200 of them. They also exist for internships.
For me, my go-to was LinkedIn. I'd like spend quite a lot of time on it every day, just looking through all the new postings and then applying to the ones I liked.
Yeah, I'd say similar. I go on LinkedIn and find some whatever job postings were posted recently, and then I'd also regularly scan some of these companies' career websites. I'd say that's another tip that I've kind of come to learn is try to apply on these career websites themselves instead of a third-party website like LinkedIn or Shake. It seems to have a better hit rate. It really, again, depends on your experience with these websites, but applying directly on that company's website seems to have worked better.
Solid. Thank you. And then Connor sent in the chat of the GitHub page. We'll send that to everyone in the Discord after the meeting. Thank you, Connor. And then final question, a bit of a theoretical beyond just a standard company job experience was, have you guys started thinking or thought of starting a business, personal business, a startup or anything like that? Yeah, it is pretty early in career. I can understand that. I think threw it out just out of interest. But I think with that, that's pretty much it. Anyone else have any questions for them? I can say it again, repeat it, but right now the market's not looking so great. So is finding a job now much different than how you guys found a job? Is that yeah? How is with the new market change and how it's a bit tougher? Do you have any recommendations on how to find a job in such a tough market now compared to when you guys, or if when you guys are also looking for jobs, if it was also tough at the time as well?
I think it's definitely way tougher now. So it would I think having a referral would really help improve your chances. I mean, it always does, but especially more so now. But because there's so many people applying, so a referral really helps.
I think, yeah, it is a little bit tougher, the job market now than it was when I was applying. But as Teresa said, try to get referrals is wherever you can. And a lot of that, you can do that through LinkedIn, connect with alumni. Referrals do definitely help in applying early, as well as this is something that holds true always. It's always in it's in the volume of applications. The more applications you put out, the better your hit rate, right? So try to set a goal, if you want to apply to X number of applications per week and try to stay with that goal. So I would say those are some pieces of advice.
Right. So anyone else? Yeah. What is that? How do you find out what tech stack to study for, or the most popular tech stack to study for, as that can be dynamic and all that? So I guess, yeah. How would you find a good tech stack to learn?
I guess I can kind of answer this. I don't know if it necessarily matters. I had not done Java in like since high school when I joined Amazon, and I exclusively work in Java. Except sometimes I use AWS, a little bit of TypeScript, And then I also randomly use this like language called Clojure. You know, so for the most part, like everyone just kind of expects that you'll learn stuff on the job.
Yeah, I second that. I don't think companies care too much about like what particular language you know coming in. So for the interviews, just do it in the language that you're most comfortable with. And then once you join your job, they'll give you enough like time to get on board and get to using the language they use.
Yeah, I agree with both Teresa and Connor said. I mainly use C# and I didn't use C# at all before joining Microsoft. It is very similar to Java, but yeah, a lot of these, it's just as long as you know how to code, these skills are transferable across languages.
So, any other questions? Okay. With that, thank you guys very, very much for taking your time. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for attending.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Before you guys go, we'll have a feedback form after. So if you guys can scan that, it'll be great. With that, I'll end the meeting. But thank you guys, and I'll see you guys another time. See you guys. You stop the recording.